This next section will be devoted to talking about, now we kind of give this overall sketch of the relationship of the earth, pig, chi opportunity, the kinds of, flavor that's available on the buffet. And the second part of this is to discuss the 12 animals in relationship to what is available, right? And so this is your chance to play along, so I'll be asking you, all the rabbits, raise their hands, etc., etc. Rabbit! And then we'll have further conversations about like general themes, like perhaps in relationships to like world affairs, and we've done a little bit of that already, but we kind of open up the floor for some questions. So could start anywhere, but we'll start with a rat. I got rats. Okay, cool. So rat, it's a very social year, incredibly social year. And rat is no stranger to social dynamics. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity to gather and demonstrate, your valued presence. Rat's a little bit neurotic, so they'll likely want to put some guidelines on how things go down, right? Guidelines on how the party goes down in order to feel comfortable. So you're more than willing, partly out of self-preservation, you're more than willing to organize the pig's nonsense. And like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we should do it like this, So you'll be looking out for others quite a lot this year and helping them sort of organize their fun. But generally speaking, and that's how you find fun, is helping other people find fun, right? So it's a very generous thing. But open-ended commitments don't really suit you. So like there may be some pushback in terms of like the opportunities that are presented to you and like wanting to kind of constrain them even more. So there could be a little bit of tension in that. But like I would just say like do your best not to get unsettled by lack of control in the environment. And do your best. What I recommend is like provide an organized and simple space for other people to detox. So I put here like think like Burning Man med tent, like okay, let's get you hydrated, right? So that's a good opportunity for the rat. Oxes, we have an oxen. A lot of people left. Oxen. Okay, great. So for ox, what goes for rat goes double for you. So you won't necessarily be asked to organize things, but your love of being a steady presence for others will be much appreciated. Maybe not at first, but eventually they'll be like, "Wow, you've really been there for me," So, like, just continue to be that way. That's definitely more the recommendation. Don't try to make sense of what other people are doing. Like just like let the line out and leave a light on in the window so they know where to come back, where they come back to. So your work can be quite rewarding. Like notions of like a second family can be found wherever there's like a common interest for you. Yeah. So otherwise, it's really not much to make a fuss about this year for oxen. You know what you like and what you don't, and don't really worry about like what other people like doesn't make sense to you. Just do us all a favor and try not to step on somebody's toes on the way to the beach. Like just try to go as gentle as you possibly can in terms of like really embracing the things that you're nourished by. You take up a lot of presence, so there's a capacity there for inadvertently pushing somebody aside. Tigers. There's a lot of tigers, and that's good because tigers and pigs, they're kind of secret admirers of each other. And they blend this sense of mutual respect and a love of adventure. Overall, I'd say best to get your ducks in a row before you go out on a bender to prevent sort of chaos from spreading where you don't really want it to. But then I'm talking to fire tigers here, that might be kind of part of the fun, right? So it's really important to like think about like your discipline practices. Because they serve you well this year as a nice complement to an environment of aimlessness. There's just there's like open doors, yeah, for you to like really demonstrate yourself. But your discipline is the way you make your impression. And it's also a year to kick back and relax. So particularly for fire tigers, like the spring is going to be like full on, but try to find some time, especially in the height of summer, to like take a break, conserve your yin, and it will help your longevity through the year, because you could burn out real fast. You don't want to hit the wall, but there's an opportunity here for you to make your own rules and to remake them if necessary. As I hear, like, try not to hurt anybody. But like also let your desires take you where you want to go. So cautious optimism there. Oh, rabbits. I know we got one rabbit, two rabbits. Okay, rabbits. Yeah, listen up. This is a good year. So in 2015, in the year of the goat, you were like queen of the social scene, essentially, but valued for your deep insight in potentially complex social situations. But this year, someone, or many will actually want to take you home. You're the darling of the year, so expect many suitors. So some social mingling is going to be pretty irresistible, as well as if you're feeling confident, like hosting in the home. Like it would be just a joy for you to have people in your home and to have them feel some pleasure in your home. So think about that. Think about like how you might want to host others, particularly if you're thinking in a professional way, those people of importance to you. Right? If you're thinking in that kind of professional way. So good luck follows as you're kind to others. You have opportunity. So fresh off, the dynamics of commitment, in the Earth Dog year, Earth Pig could be kind of the sensuousness could actually be utilized to sort of construct a sense of security. It's about personal aims mostly when it comes to the rabbit, generally. So it might be time to think about family. But, and I'm saying this for all the rabbits out there, please be careful. There will be a lot of pregnant rabbits this year. Guaranteed. That's the only thing that I'm going to put a guarantee on. Dragons, of course. Great Matt Lucas is our dragon. So, you didn't maybe want to admit it or not, but like dog year is a little bit heavy and just sort of annoying for the most part. So as that kind of loosens, there's an opportunity to explore the legitimate grandness of your own desires. You are an effective party of one, for sure, but and exploring that sort of grand depths of what you really want from your life can be really very satisfying. So you could be the center of the fun. You could be the center of attention if you want to be. If you want to make an appearance, the doors are actually open for you, and it will be very impactful. These ventures become more majestic if you spread the wealth and include others. Sort of stand as a focal point for what you want, and in the integrity of that, finding integrity in seeing how other people want the same thing or shadows of that, and like you can effortlessly provide those things for people. And so it becomes like a potentially very magical year for you. The caveat on an Earth Pig year is that the pig might provide a number of like wide-eyed followers to your leadership the one day and an empty room the next. Like very, not necessarily very consistent. And it's not you, but like keeping the attention of others could somehow, it can in some ways prove somewhat frustrating. So be patient with those that can't keep up, because you will go fast. And the seeds that you plant this year actually pay off when we get into the rat. The rat is like where the rubber hits the road. I think all the snakes left. No snakes. Figures. Plenty of snakes out there, I bet. Okay, so the interesting thing about pig is that there's a kind of naivete to pig. There's sort of an assumption, as my teacher would like to say, there's like a dragon-like assumption on the part of pigs that they kind of know everyone. And part of this is bore out by their own experience, and part of it, and the rest of it doesn't matter. So the general assumption of pig is that bore out over a long enough period of time, things are looking up. So that's always the assumption of pig. Just keep stretching it out. Everything's going to turn your way. Swear to God, just keep stretching it out. And so this kind of general interest in everyone sort of mirrors the dragon in the sense of this kind of naive interest in everyone sort of mirrors the dragon's lack of interest in anything. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. But it's born on this kind of naivete that you just keep going and it all works out. Okay, snakes are not naive. They're far from naive. Really mindful of the stress that comes with sharing this material world with others. In its purest form, snake chi is like painful to be incarnated, because the reality and the truth is actually elsewhere. It may be reflected in this reality in my own experience, but the real truth of it is somewhere else. It's kind of like Platonic forms. The whole notion that like somewhere in the universe there exists an excellent version of this camera, that's the pure form. And this is somehow like a pale representation of the pure camera. That's a pig's interpretation of a snake. They're all going to completely disagree with me, but like, it's my show, so. So that makes them particularly susceptible to the pig chi lack of subtlety. For snakes, it's going to feel a little bit exhausting and like loud. Like, can somebody just turn down the music, please? So it's not really anything to be paranoid about. Swear to God. It's just about like having your best. It's best to have a situational game plan for your endeavors, right? For the kind of unpredictability, what I call unpredictability, that comes with being cornered by compulsive honesty. I don't really like being cornered. So look for the exits, essentially. Always look for the exits. And again, it's not about being paranoid. It's about being able to embrace your own particular needs, peculiar as they are. Find your supportive corner of fellow weirdos, and otherwise sit this one out. Think nuance, and you'll find the snakes at the film festival, basically. But yeah, as long as they can find their own little corner of nuance of like very unique things that are kind of off the social track, they're not interested in what, generally speaking, they're not interested in what everybody likes. So particularly this year, they'll find those places like a safe haven. So I say stay there. Or come out. We'll take care of you. Horses. Aha. All right, so pretty simple. It's about desires, and horses generally are multitaskers. So pig year provides one last year of enjoying yourself to multitask and just put yourself out there before the rat sort of bogs you down in details. So it might feel like a good time to get carried away, with a number. Actually, what I should say is that go ahead and get into it, and get into a number of projects. The one thing I would say is that try to tap into what it feels like and the experience of completing a project. Finish things. Get used to finishing things in a horse in this pig year. If you just blah, and send yourself out there and there's a lot of loose threads of unfinished projects, then rat year will be kind of a nightmare. So tie it off. Goats. Goats is a really good year for goats, probably out there. Okay, so goats also part of this trine with rabbits and pigs. Goats are wired for altruism. It's a favorable time for goats generally, as they can kind of take these open-ended social impulses towards some harmonious end. It's a great year for goats to network. They have revolutionary ideas, and to be honest, you might only have pigs' attention half the time. So try not to get irritated about that. I would say, short attention spans notwithstanding, keep making friends. This is a very good time to make friends. 2020 with the metal rat will bring a year of very intense focus. So you need as many people on board with your own particular vision as possible. Take advantage of the pig's sort of humanitarian tendencies and enlist followers. Goats will help provide a reference point, like the humanitarian notion. It'd be really good for a goat to come up to you this year and say, do you really like running water? Well, these people don't have it. Help us, tap into something you enjoy. To help these people. So that can be a really good motivating factor for goats this year. Expect them to kind of keep congregating followers, which could bode well for world politics. Monkeys. All right, great. All right, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag from monkey, mostly because, monkeys are always really curious about parties, and they can initially sort of match up to the gregariousness of pig, but only to a point. After a while, this kind of open-endedness just sort of make monkeys restless and suspicious. You can't. There has to be there's no end to this. You really? Okay. So it would give kind of a fertile ground for a monkey to want to make trouble. Because monkeys, they very much like hard targets that they can relate to, like tigers. So there is some reference points in an earth pig year, but the emphasis is on physical sensation and embodiment. And sometimes, because the monkey's so mental, those can lack the sort of enticing little subtleties that sort of just make you all kind of warm inside. Sort of like the snake, look for those things. Those particular kind of things that not everybody else is into, but just like a small subgroup of people. You find those people very easily this year. And there's a very good chance that you can do some good work. But I also recommend generally for most monkeys, like, get out of your head and into your body. Try Qigong, CrossFit, whatever. Just obviously be careful of injury, but like it will help sort of being able to drop into the year. So think social butterfly, but also spend some time kind of more dropping into bodily sensation, bodily feeling. And I wrote here, like, consider leading a group of others on an adventure, like extending yourself out in that way. Roosters. Yes. Okay, rooster. Okay, so roosters, not much for frivolity. Like they're kind of, they tend to be a little bit all work, no play. Tend to. So there's the lack of focus that the pig chi provides can be a little bit frustrating for the analytical tendency of the rooster. Since a pig generally has trouble committing to the importance of precision. I don't know, we'll figure it out on the way. It kind of tends to give rooster a little bit of like tension. So they have this sort of self-consciousness and sort of controlling tendencies this year that might be a little bit exhausting if, again, they're not finding themselves kind of wrapped in like more specialized circumstances, kind of like, again, the snake and the monkey. So you tend to like to shape the directions of your social engagements. But there will be plenty of opportunity to show off your more showy, seductive qualities. Things like online dating will get a lot of attention, but not necessarily in a sustained way. That's not personal. It's just, people are very distracted. So the interesting thing about this is that, like the rat, roosters are they're compulsively organizing the nonsense of all the other signs. They're always trying to make sense of things and put things down in precision. How that translates to the Earth pig year is that you might be a little blunt and you might like kind of maybe lack some subtlety here and there in terms of like identifying what somebody's obvious motivation is for what they're doing. You might just kind of like call people out, and that might get some blowback initially, but they're going to thank you for it later. So you can bring wisdom to bear, but yeah, the sort of bearish, muddy tendencies might make that a little bit imprecise, which could cause like some emotional distress and confusion, which is definitely not what you want. So overall, like the snake, it's about kind of finding your regularity in your social circles and picking and choosing when you want to branch out of that. Because other people are waiting, and they will find you enticing for sure. So somebody needs to be the sober one that gets everybody home, basically. And we need you, so please show up. Okay, dogs. You. Okay, so things were pretty heavy last year, typically for dogs. And that was something that, like last year's presentation, and I was sort of in the impression that there would be a lot more support. And that may have been the case for some dogs, and many others would actually just feel more pressure. And so depending on how that year washed out for you, a pig in its sensuous nature is really just going to bring a very welcome pressure change. And so I say take it in. Like let yourself take a breather. Kick back and let the spring and the early summer kind of carry you without feeling the sort of need to do something with it. Basically enjoy the company of those you trust, and keep it simple. Things will still kind of be settling down for you, because the spring's going to give us a little bump, with a fire tiger and fire rabbit moon. So things might kind of kick up a little bit. You kind of want to wait till autumn for things to kind of settle down and make more sense. But winter will bring a lot of sweetness for you. So, the dog is this kind of combination of a rooster and a pig. So it can be very rousted in feeling this kind of pressure for distinctions and boundaries. Very important. Dogs very important for boundaries. And they also have this kind of sleepiness quality. Like once the boundaries are established and they feel safe, they just want to lie on their back and like be rubbed all day, right? So here you are in this place where that's the invitation, from the people that you love, to be nurtured and to be cared for and looked after. You're important, so you deserve it. Okay, so the big question for pigs this year is that can there be too much of a good thing? And the answer is quite possibly. You're not unfamiliar with gorging on pastry simply for the experience of the texture. And in the earth pig, you could get carried away, and so carried away you might miss your bus, or your interview, or your car payment, or important birthdays. It's like sensory overload in some ways. It can kind of get you off track with kind of the social obligations that you need in order to keep living a life of fun. You kind of need to tend the garden, so to speak. Sure. Look to rabbits, look to goats in particular, to kind of help keep you aligned. Dogs that are useful, rats. The pig does need people to kind of keep them in check a little bit, because they can, especially in a pig year, their senses will be very alive and driving for them, and that can be a good thing, and it can also provide an opportunity for divisions and muddiness and potential confusion. So many things that can possibly happen once pigs get going. Don't flinch. Just follow the obvious. Hypocrisy hurts this year. So be honest with yourself and others, despite the costs. Like really, you don't have a choice. You just have to really be present with the sensations and the feelings in your body. World is your oyster. Just remember to set the alarm, because you do need to wake up and go to work. It's important to if you have some disciplinary practices, water them. Have friends. But this is also a really good time for other pigs to to orient themselves to their own fun by being of service to other people's, right? So if pigs have outlets, where they can actually help other people find their fun and their own orientation this year, it's tremendously rewarding for them. They'll feel like the luckiest person on the planet, kind of like how I feel right now. So, that's giving advice to myself at this moment. At this point, I'd like to open it up with more questions in terms of topical things like romance, world politics, those sorts of things, or just in general, any kind of clarification questions. Ooh, full, yes.
I'm just curious about the synthesis of what you just described for our year and our hours.
Mm-hmm. Aha. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. So we kind of dovetail this into, all right, I just gave you kind of like a, slice of like how to regard our own experience. Like all these practices, what I'm saying, it's not intended to be like fortune telling, like even though some of it may have sounded like that. But this is an opportunity for reflection of our own experience. Like I'm not telling you what to do, like really, this is just an opportunity to really pay attention. And part of how more expanded way in which we can do that is by understanding the other, the badza, the full badza, which is a relationship between the hour, day, month, and year of our birth, right? So each one of these is a pillar, and they carry their own sort of earthly branch, their own animal. Depending on, the primary one is the year. But the secondary one is definitely the hour, because in the system that I practice, which is built on top of the Tongshu, zodiac or pole star astrology, which is a personal fate calculation system, you get an opportunity to kind of like more fully understand, like, or have a fuller understanding of what we would call a chi character, right? So this is kind of like further into the rabbit hole. But essentially what we're talking about here is like taking two characters and giving you a synthesis of like what's called a chi character. And then that chi character is in relationship to a chart, a fate, is a personal fate calculation system. So when we look at a pig year, yes, or any year, how we engage that year, if we're, a pig horse. It could be sometimes like a pig, it could be sometimes like a horse, or it could be some sort of combination in which you feel those two things work well in the world. Horses are materialists. Pig is not a materialist, necessarily. They're a sensualist. They're interested in their sensations. That's not necessarily about materials, right? But for the horse, it very much is. So that kind of like forward movement, and it also depends on the type of horse and their relationship to their own experience. So it does, when you start unpacking this, it gets bigger and bigger, yeah, in terms of like what the auspices in an Earth Pig year could be for you or for anyone. So yeah, very good question, because everybody else has, 3 other animals. Oh my God, so like could change your experience a little bit.
We have a question from the internet.
Oh, yes. The internet's actually there. Hello, internet.
Nicole.
Yay.
She's in Ecuador.
Oh, wow. Hello, Ecuador.
She wants to know, can you talk in detail about the moon cycles through the year and if there are certain times to be more aware of pitfalls?
Spring. Spring. Very much spring. That's the most obvious choice. Spring is a cacophonous time because spring is represented by tiger. And tiger is a bit super foregoing, never mind. Right? Now, like super, and it has this kind of like almost binary movement because it's black and orange stripe, right? So orange stripe is like full on, and black is like disappear, right? So spring sometimes is really understood as like chaotic. It's a time for newness. It's a time for freshness and new pursuits for sure, but not fulfillment, not quite yet. Yeah, right. We're looking further into late spring, early summer for those kinds of things to start happening. So impulse, very strong in spring. And in particular, this year, again, we're looking at a fire tiger, which has no black stripe. So it's just full on. And for fire tigers that are born in a fire tiger year, they've had to learn that relationship to their own desires as a critical survival tool. Many fire tigers don't make it, because they're too young. Yeah, so they get cut down by life and circumstance. So they have to learn how to actually temper themselves in a way that makes sense to them. And their way of making sense of tempering themselves is chaotic to most of us, right? So they're very potent. And so this spring gives an opportunity for moving forward very strongly, but perhaps a little too much. Yeah. So some of the pitfalls in terms of I want to be a rock star, and then you sell everything and move to LA, and then 3 months later, homeless. So that's a very over the top sort of example, but it's those sorts of impulses are really available to us in smaller doses throughout the fire tiger, into a lesser degree the fire rabbit moons. So those right away in spring, we get an opportunity to kind of check in with okay, what are we really invested in? What's our priorities? And so I would say during those moons, really pay attention. If you make it through fire tiger sort of unscathed, then fire rabbit's a really good opportunity to kind of settle in and get to know ourselves. Based on what it is that we're really driven, we're really passionate about. Because passion is the name of the game right away in spring. And then, in relation to that, it seems all downhill from there, basically. So if you get through spring, I think you're in pretty good shape. Thank you, Internet. Yes?
I have a question to relay for a friend of a friend. Wondering, what are the metal roosters' love prospects in the Earth year?
Again, quite good. It depends on what their goals are. If they're trying to tie the knot and make something with great longevity, I would just say this. There'll be many potential opportunities for metal roosters to strut their stuff. What the most important thing for them to remember is just keep them around. Just keep them around. Don't try to tie them down anywhere. Just keep them around. Keep enjoying the presence of whoever it is that they're drawn to. And keep them around until metal rat. Then you can kind of push those things. But if you get too serious too fast in an earth pig year, they're spooked. They'll be gone. But then again, it depends on so many other cofactors. But generally speaking, I'm not encouraging to play the field if their principals don't feel that way. But just find that sweet spot as best you can, without being critical or controlling. Just, they can do that. They can relax. If they find an ox, oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so that's a lot of information. I mean, the thing that I'm most drawn to is in terms of business finance. It'll be a lot about entertainment, like Vice's in entertainment rock on, basically this year. And I would just come back to really themes of humanitarian gestures as much as possible. There's still a lot of people out there that are trying to divide us. And I was hearing some report on the radio about the number of actual physical barriers in between countries is quadrupled over the last few years. And I would say that remember the humanitarian basis of our own desires. That we want comfy clothing, and so does everyone else. So I think if we can kind of hold that remembrance in our way going forward, and remember, the sort of inspiration of 2014, of that wood goat year, when like there was a real chance for us to actually come together in a substantive way. We can renew these sorts of commitments and find a basis for those things within our own experience that bring like a much deeper sense of enjoyment than, the next iPhone. Yeah, so think more complex and get into your bodies. Thank you. Thank you, Internet.
Guys, thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.